everyone, it's Leigh with Backstage. I just wanted to introduce an amazing individual, Jamie, the Wrestling Wizard Richards. Yes, that is right. I got to sit down and speak with Mr. Richards over the weekend, and he is an amazing individual. I just didn't know how much he was. As a fan, I didn't know half the stuff I thought I knew. But after talking to him, I learned so much. He teaches. Just as talking, he teaches. And I loved it. Every minute of it. He's a wonderful guy. You wouldn't think about it, but he's just a big old teddy bear. Trust me. But Mr. Richards, thank you so much for sitting with us. We had an amazing time, and I would love to have you back again. So everyone, I introduce to you Jamie, Wrestling Wizard Richards.
Well, Mr. Jamie, Wrestle Wizard. No, it's fine.
Okay.
Jamie, Wrestling Wizard Richards. Where did you get the name? Come on. That's one question I've been wanting to ask you.
Oh, God.
Like, where in the world?
Barry Koloff. That's where it comes from. He runs Rocket City. I was trained by more old school type guys that done more, I guess you say a little bit more in-depth and technical. That's what the old school guys would call like shooters.
Okay.
That's the terminology that you're in the ring and purposely trying to hurt somebody.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
Guys would do certain things and I'd catch them in the move. Like, I don't even know how to really describe it.
You can easily maneuver
Yes.
yourself
Yes.
in and out.
Yes.
Okay.
And he messaged me one day and he was like, hey, I'm going to start calling you the Wrestling Wizard. And I was like, I'm not wearing a stupid wizard hat. I'm not doing it.
Come on, be Harry Potter.
To start with, I was tagging with a guy and he messaged me and he was like, hey, what do you think about, since you're doing this Omega virus thing, if you paint your face somehow? And I was like, well, what do you mean somehow? And he sent me, let me think the guy's name, Paul Stanley from Kiss. Yes, Paul Stanley from Kiss, got a star on his face.
Yeah.
Okay, he sent me a picture of that.
Okay.
And it's got the, the white with the star and the lipstick. I was like, I'm not doing Paul Stanley. He's like, well, something like that. So I started messing around doing different kind of star patterns and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, I don't know. I was like, what's the Wrestling Wizard thing? So he sends me a dictionary definition of what it is. When you go through the top of it, it reads off the whole, the magician thing. Yeah. And then down below it, when you go to read, it says a master of his arts or techniques.
Okay.
So I was like, okay, I'll go with that because, I like, Bret Hart and people like, they're calling, the hitman, and it's the hitman, it's key to like a sniper.
Yeah.
Or Randy Orton's cerebral assassin. Mm-hmm. So once I actually read into that, it
did you apply a different name before that?
No, I've used Jamie Richards for.
Like, when did you start?
When did I start wrestling? 1997, July 19th, 1997.
So many hits to the head. He still remembers the date, y'all.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
But why?
Why did I start?
Why? Why?
Oh, I'll
you guys take a beating. Why would you want to take a beating?
Oh, well, that's just like anything else. You build a callus to it.
Okay.
Like, okay.
Why did you get into it? Like, why did you?
Well, I liked wrestling.
Oh, yeah, I want to get hit upside the head, sure.
Well, that came later.
Okay.
A lot of it I didn't. When I started watching wrestling, it was as NWA was transferring into WCW. This was before the whole Monday Night Wars and all that. This was before that.
Okay.
Like I remember WrestleMania. One of the first ones I watched that I remember is I watched on WWE when I remember was WrestleMania 3, which that's the whole Hogan and Andre thing that they thought was so big. But I was more WCW, NWA stuff with like Arn Anderson, Ric Flair, the original Four Horsemen with Ole Anderson and stuff like that. And that's the type of guys I lean more to. And I grew up watching that, and then one day, Dad comes in. He's got my cousin with him, and he's like, "Hey, we're gonna go do something." He was real, just real shady. Yeah, just never really no detail. And we go to this metal building right outside of town. I walk in, and there's a wrestling ring in there. I mean, it's ratty looking, run down, whatever. And I was like, I didn't know this was. This is 10 minutes from our house. And I had no clue it was there. And I was like, how did you find out about this, Dad? He's like, well, just wait a minute, you'll find out. Well, night goes on. We're watching wrestling. And some music starts playing. And Dad's like, watch. They call a guy named, they introduce him, and they say, Ice King. Well, it's my cousin.
Oh my God.
Comes walking out full on. He was a big Bret Hart. No, had no clue. He comes. He was
a family secret.
He was a big Bret Hart mark. So he's got a white, black, and blue outfit, decked out. Looks kind of like Bret Hart's, but it's white, black, and blue.
Okay.
And yeah, again, just totally blown away. And I was like, this is actually because growing up, you never heard anything of being able to be a wrestler. You just see all these, big, huge guys. And they're all from like way off. Yeah. Never knew anything up until walking into that building. I never knew anything about independent wrestling. Didn't even know it existed. And a little while after that, I started talking to my cousin, and he started training me. Like I learned on his back deck, on his trampoline. When he got married, he had a place sectioned off in his garage that we would chain wrestle on that.
So did you just train with him, or did you move on to other people?
I started out training with him, but then it was he was road buddies with a guy named Harley. Harley is just a picture of Kevin Nash.
Okay. Yeah. No.
Harley was a guy who lived in Weaver, and him and my cousin met up, and they started traveling together. And they just go to different shows and work each other. They got on a tour with Mike Jackson. Everybody in Alabama knows who Mike Jackson is.
Okay.
And they started doing shows with Mike Jackson. And the way it would work is if they already had the ring and everything set up and there was time, before the show, we would get in the ring and do something. Or if there was time afterwards, we would get in the ring and do something. I never had the traditional training. It was just kind of like whatever show we were at.
Pick up what you can.
That's actually how I got my first gimmick name. My first gimmick name was Fetch the Roadie.
Fetch the Roadie.
Hence the name as in go fetch.
Yes.
And roadie as in
go get it. Go.
No, I done everything for him. By the time I started riding with him.
Like band roadie.
Yeah. Well, by the time I was able to start going with them to the shows, I was old enough to drive. Well, my cousin had this like Honda Passport, just like a bigger SUV thing. And they would get in the back and just lounge out, and I'd drive. If we stopped somewhere to eat, they'd sit there and just be whatever. I'd be the one that ran in and got it. If we had to stop and get tape or whatever, I was the one that done everything. We get to the show, I'm the one toting their bags in. They concession stand, whatever. I was the one that went, I was a gopher.
Prospect.
Yeah, pretty much prospect. Yes, there you go. That's a good way to put it. That's a good way to put it. Yes, and that's how
he was my prospect.
That's how it started. Then I ended up. He met a couple of guys through through wrestling, through them going in and out of that show, that they started a show down in Anniston.
Okay.
It's called ACW. Real great guy named Frank Barnhill ran it. And a friend of his, I don't know if the guy's still alive or not, he used to have a bar down in Anniston called D Ford. And he paid for a building, spent money on what's called a house ring, like it's built not to be took down.
Okay.
Like it was bolted to the floor, like it would flex. They made it work with flex around, but that ring, it was probably the biggest ring I've ever been in and the best built because it was made, again, not to come down. It was just, you adjust it as you're going.
Yeah, see, I was a promoter years ago. So I was one that helped the National Guard in Tennessee, where I was. So basically, I worked for the group from Nashville that would come down and we would put them on. So I'm just used to seeing the rings being smacked together.
Yep, done that a lot.
The most basic.
Done that a lot. Well, that place that we wrestled at, me and Frank's son Chad, we built 4 or 5 rings that was actually built there. And what it was is they had a road ring, low profile ring, which it's just lower to the ground, and other stuff was just in case, because they were.
And they're not comfortable by any means. There's no comfort to any of these rings.
It can be. I've slept in a ring a couple of times.
You guys had some extra padding up on your
they're not all. There's not much to it.
Yeah, that's what I was telling you.
However you do the poles, and then however you do the outside frame, and then it's square tubing is the framework on the inside, and then they have the bump bars that's under it, which is usually a little heavier square tubing, and then it's either like 2x6s or plywood.
Yep.
And
I'm used to the plywood.
I can't remember how many 2x6s, but it's usually like 8 sheets of plywood. And then I've been in rings that had 0 padding, like it was just the plywood. And then there's some that'll use stuff that looks like carpet padding.
Yeah.
And then some places would have like tumbling mat padding. Well, then as the years progressed, come to find out, they make ring padding. So I've been in a couple of those that was like that. And then the same thing with the ropes. Most of the ropes.
And you've built on the side quite a few.
Yes. Like the ropes. The majority of the ropes that everybody sees, it's the ground cable that comes from your telephone pole down to the ground, or like a winch cable. That's what it is. And it's looped around. It's got the turnbuckles, which most everybody thinks the turnbuckles is that center pad. It's a turnbuckle pad. The turnbuckles, it's got a hook on each end of it. It's threaded, and you can adjust it and make it tight or whatever. And it's the cable with water hose ran over the top of it, and then they just wrap an electrical tape. Now, like WWE, they use nylon rope.
I've seen them use actual rope.
It's nylon rope. Now, I've been in 2 rings that actually used nylon rope. Smaller rings, it's great. I wrestle the way it feels. It's more rubber band.
Like I said, it has more give.
Yes, there's more rubber band to it. Now, a lot of guys that does high flying don't like the nylon ropes because it has too much give.
What is your favorite type of ring? If you really had to choose a ring, like, oh yeah, I know I'm gonna have a good night with this.
I can name off a bunch of different shows, but I've even wrestled as far as, there was one show that I wrestled, they had 2 rings. They had, most standard indie rings are 16 by 60, which is from inside the ring, it's turnbuckle to turnbuckle, 16 feet.
Okay.
I wrestled in, I think the only one that I wrestled in that was smaller. It was a place in South Pittsburgh, Tennessee, and they always done shows a lot of times where they have 2 rings, and they have the regular 16, and they had a 14. I've got that stuff. There's nothing but a 16 foot ring, and with decent give. Because like I wrestled in one before back in the 70s and 80s, you hear people talk about the rings that has a spring underneath it in the center. It's like a huge, like, I mean, I wouldn't even know how to, I guess like an 18-wheeler spring. I mean, it's enormous.
Okay.
And it's got a base, and then it's got a little thing where the bump bar goes through it, and I didn't like it. Everybody's like, oh, it's got a spring in it. Yeah, that spring sucks. It takes away from the ring because the size of the ring, it kind of.
See, I would have thought it would give you an advantage.
Well, it takes, because of the way the ring's done, it puts more support in the middle of the ring because of the size of it. It works, like the closer to the center you get, it has more of the, not really trampoline effect, but it gives it more of a trampoline aspect.
Okay.
Because
That's what I was thinking.
the way the rings, like physics in a ring's kind of goofy. Well, like, okay, if you take a bump regular in the ring, you're gonna, now you get used to it for a while, but of course, you're gonna feel it. Now, you get on the top rope and jump off and take that same bump, it feels less than the one landing, standing up, because when you're in the ring, when you're jumping and doing stuff, because of your impact with the ring, it's like your weight doubles. So if you're a 100-pound person and you're landing in the ring, you're hitting it like a 200-pound person, so it makes the ring give more. Which that's what you want. You want it so it's not beating you to death like a boxing ring. It's solid. Yeah. It just looks like a ring, and you're wrestling on a rock. That's really all it is.
No, I've been in a ring. I've been slammed. I had a buddy. I am curious by nature. Sometimes a little too curious.
Yeah, that sometimes can be bad.
Yeah, I'm a little too curious at times, and it's questioning him.
Right.
Like, hey, what about this? What about that? And he's like, okay, the only way I'm going to be able to explain this to you, get in the ring.
Yeah.
And no training, no nothing. Like I said, I was just promoting. I was just putting stuff together.
That was how I was. There was a lot. The place I wrestled at in Anniston, when I started wrestling down there, they had training days. And there would be a guy in there that would he'd get in the ring with somebody and just do it and break it down and whatever. I can't, I have to be hands-on. So I liked the fact of going to shows and actually doing stuff. And they don't do it much now because everybody's so.
Yeah, when I first saw it, I was quite surprised at how quick.
I don't want. How you feel about profanity? I can describe it a little bit easier.
Trust me, there's gonna be a lot of
edits. A lot of the guys now have. That's another one. But huh? Oh no, it's fine. It's fine. Wrestling nowadays has kind of become pussified. I guess everybody they're.
Because your style is a little different.
It's tight.
Yeah.
Well, now they believe tight is stiff, or you're trying to hurt me because there's contact. Well, back then,
you're also a hardcore wrestler. You do hardcore.
Deathmatch.
Deathmatch. Okay.
There's a difference.
Okay.
Actually, I thought when I first heard about it.
I am a fan. I am coming at you as a fan.
Yeah. So, well, when I first started hearing about it, I thought it was the same thing. Hardcore and deathmatch is again like hardcore and regular wrestling.
So you got regular wrestling. And
then you have hardcore.
Then you have deathmatch. Kind of like, okay, that's not exactly.
Okay, hardcore. It uses.
So the hardcore is when you go in.
Okay, hardcore it's a mild what deathmatch is. It's not as violent. Like they still use chairs and tables and garbage can lids, stuff like that. Okay. The deathmatch stuff is that amped up. Yeah. Nowadays, everything looks like a weaker knockoff of deathmatch because now everybody's got into using barbed wire and thumbtacks.
I was like tacks
and
glass.
Stuff like that. And then you jump up into the glass, like glass panes and light tubes. And I've seen some guys use razor wire, and then they're real big into setting stuff on fire and going through it.
Why on earth would you want to do that? And did you really give me the why not?
I don't know other way. I mean, at certain times, the money's pretty good for, I mean, if you figure you get $300-400 and you go out and do a match.
I was like, you guys will
Average.
get paid a lot of money to go out there and wrestle.
Depends on the show.
Okay.
Depends on the show.
And who you are.
Yes, that's it.
Okay.
Bigger names make more. Newer guys starting out. Now you do have some promoters that'll try to keep everything kind of equal with everybody, or pretty, like in a vicinity. But if you go somewhere, okay, imagine working your regular job. You go in and work your regular job, and you work 15 minutes, and you get $300.
Oh. Gotcha.
So
why not?
exactly.
So when you do death match, you get a little extra.
Yes.
So why not?
That's more or less the bigger. A lot of the now, there was a few of the guys that I knew going into doing deathmatch stuff. Matter of fact, they were the ones that I was kind of like, I'm getting on up there in wrestling. I've been wrestling for a while. It was kind of like one of my bucket list things, and I was like, I want to do, at least one, just to
And
say.
one, gotcha.
Well, no, I don't travel around to do death matches,
Okay.
but
So it's not something you actually seek out.
No. Like it's IWA Deep South, and when they do stuff,
Okay.
I do stuff with it. Like the guy's name's Kevin Brennan, real awesome guy. He has some regular shows,
Mhm.
and then he has kind of like next week in Silicaga, they're doing one, and it's kind of a mixture of regular and deathmatch stuff.
Okay.
Kind of, sort of.
Okay.
It's Alabama. They're real particular.
Well, I know that's what you were saying
Yes.
before, that Alabama is very particular.
Yeah, they're real particular about what you can and can't do. And then the places you do it at, they're real particular because they're worried about you tearing stuff up.
Mhm. That's what I was going to
Yeah.
get to is like, how much does that hinder your shows?
It depends.
Okay.
Now, most of what Kevin and them do, they have, like, people shows up to watch it and stuff, but a lot of what they do is, like, internet. It's TitleNet or something like that. I can't remember what the website is, but I think it's TitleNet or something. It's you can go in and pay for it like you do all the newer app stuff, like
Okay.
Netflix and all that. It's specifically just a wrestling channel.
Okay.
And I think it's XPW. I think it's in Philadelphia. That Kevin and them's kind of like a sister to it.
Okay.
Like how the Hells Angels and stuff have like sister. It's not Hells Angels, but they're
It's
attached.
affiliated.
Yeah, they're affiliated with it.
Yes.
There you go. Support. Yes.
Okay. So, but as far as here, it doesn't really hinder you too much.
No.
Just follow your guidelines
Yeah.
and what you can and can't do.
Right.
It's not that big of a deal.
Well, most everything is like I kind of, because of the kids, I've narrowed it down
Okay.
to not so much. Because when I was younger, I traveled, like wrestling paid for me to live. Like it
Okay.
was, I wouldn't say a normal job, but
No, it's
I
not
wrestled-
a normal job.
I wrestled 3 regular shows, and they were all within 2 to 3 hours of where I was living. And they ran on a specific day every week. So that's 3 shows of steady income that I had, and I didn't need to do nothing else.
So you can just pick and choose what you wanted.
Well, I mean, it would be like how everybody goes and works and pays their bills and stuff. Okay, well, where I lived at, I had, it was a house that was broke down into like little miniature apartments. And the vehicle I had was already paid for, so it paid my gas, my phone bill, my food, what little bit of rent, and then the power bill was separated depending on what size apartment we had, because it all came in. It was, like I said, it's a house. It was just sectioned off.
Yeah.
So they just, depending on what your size was, is what percentage you would pay,
Oh.
depending on what you used. So all I had was, I had a ceiling fan, an oscillating fan, and a TV. So I mean, I didn't use a whole lot of power.
It was a bachelor's pad.
Well, I mean, I kept like they had a main kitchen, because there was a couple that owned it that lived in the back of it. There was one girl that lived there and me.
Oh,
So they had a main access living room that was pretty ginormous. And then where they were at, and they had a main kitchen that was pretty big and a dining room. And a good majority of what I had, as in food wise, I kept in my room, and I had a little electric like grill.
A little girl, yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, it was just full on, had a little grate on it and everything. And I just plugged it up, and there was times I'd take, like, okay, say if I was going to eat a can of beef stew, I'd turn it on, let the grill get hot, and crack the beef stew open a little bit, and just set the can on it, and sit there and stir it every once in a while. And
Look at you trying to start the place on fire.
no, it's metal. It ain't going to do that. It's the same thing as setting a metal pot on it.
Oh my gosh. So we've always had like a thrill seeking side of you.
Yeah, I've done everything stupid except for jumping out of an airplane, and I just can't afford
Say,
that.
why not?
Well, I can't afford it yet. I want to. I know a place that's been there. I've talked to them before, but I just hadn't had the money to go jump out of a perfectly good airplane. Now, bungee jumping, all the howevers you can bungee jump, I've done ankles, waist, whatever. I've done base jumping, like off in the water.
Yes.
Hang gliding, parasailing, all that stuff.
You're just out there seeking that thrill, that rush.
Well, I was just young and stupid. I mean, really, that's all it was. It was.
So your 20 plus years of wrestling, we'll say, your body is taking a toll.
I'm actually better than probably I should be.
Oh.
I haven't. Well, I
So
haven't.
do you work out? Do you maintain
No.
a certain level?
That callus I was talking about before. After you wrestle for so long, your body gets used to it, so you can kind of work the lazy card to a certain level and still be able to function.
Okay.
So, I mean, I do enough, and I have to kind of do a little bit more now because I'm not as young or as flexible as I used to be. So, you kind of got to, and then cutting down on the shows, it hurts and hinders, or helps and hinders.
Okay.
Makes it easier to do stuff, and you're not all as, man, I had this match last night and I've got to drive to wherever and do it again today, which I look at it as two different ways. You got a person that wrestles and you got a wrestler. Okay. Person that wrestles, that's me. That's like, I guess you would say like a weekend warrior or whatever.
Okay.
They do they do 1 to 2 or, maybe a little bit more shows a month. Then you have a wrestler and that's all they do. Like they go somewhere, they wrestle, they might have 1 or 2 days off during the week, but they're either driving or they're doing a show.
Okay.
And I kind of chose the dad and kid thing over traveling. Like I know guys that's got, guys and girls, that has families and kids and they still travel and do it. And
they're wrestlers.
yes, and just with the way